a topic today I like to use. In the midst of your storm, stay in the ship. In the midst of your storm, stay in the ship. Look at somebody and tell them, stay in the ship. Stay in the ship. All right. Stay in the ship. I know I read a lot, and many may not be familiar with this passage, but I'm going to try to attempt to explain the story, the passage of the Bible, and how storms relate to our lives in that same manner. See, by the time we get to verse 9, Paul and the other prisoners have been traveling on this ship for quite some time, from one place to another, and they end up in a city called Lasea. Now, Lasea harbor wasn't quite suitable for housing ships during the winter. And the owner of the ship and the captain didn't want to lose the ship or their prisoners due to the storms, due to the winter storms, and was willing to set sail anyhow. So this lands us at the feet of verse 9, which give us a few important insight. So let us read a little bit. It said, much time was spent, and when sailing was dangerous, because the fast was now already past. This lets us know that it was what we call October, the peak of the Atlantis hurricane season, which still holds true today. And Paul was fasting the travail fast, which took place on the 10th month of the year, is when Babylon overtook the Israelites and destroyed the temple. And because the temple was destroyed, they still fasted, they still celebrated, even though they didn't have no temple. It's kind of like, because there's no church, don't mean you can't serve God. So that's how we know what time of year that we was in. Now, Acts 27:10 says, sir, I perceive this voyage to be hurt. You know, Paul was telling them that if we take this journey, it's going to be some hurt people. It's going to be some things going on. It's going to be some losses of people airing the ship and cargo. But they decided to go with what the owner of the ship said. The owner of the ship said, if we stay here and these storms come up, this harbor ain't ready for it. So we're going to have some harm to our ship. I think about us. There are times in our life when we have a choice, just as the Centron did, to take counseling from the godly or the ungodly. It's going to come a time in your life when you're going to have to listen to godly people or ungodly people, right? The Bible tells us in Psalms 1:1, blessed is the man that walk not in the counseling of the ungodly. And when you walk in the counseling of the ungodly, more than likely you will end up in a storm. Kind of like Paul. But in Paul's case, he didn't have no control of the situation. He was forced into this storm. Sometimes you can get caught in a storm, and it won't be no fault of your own. See, Paul was a prisoner and was made to take this voyage. In life, you will come to find out, if you live long enough, that you will find yourself in a storm because somebody else's decisions. Have you ever found yourself in a storm because of what somebody else did? See, you can get put out your house. Your lights can get cut off just because somebody chose not to pay the bill or decide they want to quit their job for no apparent reason, or decide they want to shop more than spend on bills, or decide they want to gamble the money away. You'll find yourself getting put out your house, lights getting cut off, water getting cut off. You'll find yourself getting your car repossessed if somebody else is responsible for paying the bill and don't pay it. See, I don't know about you, But I done came to find out that my very own children, grown or not grown, can throw you into a storm. The things they do and the things they need still affect you to a point that can cause you to go into a storm. Okay. Some people don't want to hear that, but that's okay though. Single parents, sometimes they can have it worse. Think about this. When you're a single parent, things can quickly put you in a storm. Children need money. Especially the child acting up in school, and you got to leave your job, your check short. Okay. How many have to leave their job and go check out some things at school? Ain't too many people getting paid if they ain't on that clock. Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Don't let your child act up and go to jail. Get in trouble. Get sick. It's so many things. Family members getting sick. It's so many things that can throw you into a storm, no fault of your own. If you didn't know, everybody in this room right now is in a storm. From what Adam and Eve did way back then. Everybody in this room was born into sin. It's not your fault you born into sin. It's what they did. Okay. I'm just saying. And look who had to pay for that. God had to send his only begotten son. We didn't pay for it. Don't you tell me going to the cross wasn't no storm. Getting beat beyond measure wasn't no storm. Getting your beard pulled out. Getting your skin ripped from your body. Letting your ribs, your backbone show. Don't you tell me he wasn't in no storm. And he didn't do nothing. Okay. I'm just saying. You'll find yourself in a storm. So what do you do when you're in a storm? See, when you're in a storm, you can't allow the storm to get in you and become the rage of the storm. Become the one that destructed even to those around you. Don't give up. See, Paul had to hold on to his faith. Because, see, sometimes when you're in a storm, you become a storm to people around you. You become rude. You become outrageous. You begin to say things and hurt people's feelings because you hurt, because you're going through. Don't let the storm get in you when you're going through the storm. Don't you become the storm that causes other people's problems because you're in a storm. So when you're in a storm, don't let the storm get in you. See, Romans 12:2 said, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you're going to make it in a storm, you're going to have to learn how to change the way you think. You got to learn how to change the way you look at things. The Bible says don't be conformed to this world. That means you don't need to be shaped in accordance with, don't need to act in accordance with the world. Don't be conformed into the storm that you are trying to get out of. Don't be conformed into the very storm that you're trying to get out of and become a storm in someone else's life. See, we have to transform by the renewing of our mind. You have to transform when you get into a storm. Transform your attitude. Transform your character. You got to transform your very nature to become better than you were in the storm. See, this is not a normal transformation. This is a spiritual transformation in faith of the way you think, perceive, and react to situations. Listen, church. See, you got to learn how to embrace your faith. This is a critical chance for you to change your nature, trusting in God and believing you can overcome challenges. See, when you embrace your faith in a storm, it helps you navigate through the storm, and you become stronger than when you went in. That's why Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5:7, for we walk by faith and not by sight. Changing your very nature is transforming your journey. It requires you to look at yourself, look at your mindset. It requires you to take certain steps spiritually, and you need to line up with God. That's what you got to do to transform your mind. You got to line up with God. You got to be like them toys called the Transformers. See, you got to be like these toys called the Transformers. You got to be like them toys called the Transformers. See, a Transformer can look and appear to be one way, but when things get tough, they change into something that can handle the situation. They become more, as they say, than meet the eye. See, you got to become more than meet the eye. You have to be more, it has to be more in you than what I can see and anyone else can see that's on the inside of you. You got to have Jesus on the inside so Jesus can show up on the outside and move within your storm. Oh, somebody needs to hear this today. See, you got to renew your mind by transforming it to be a survival. So you can survive in the storm. See, sometimes we allow storms to take us out. And what I mean by that, sometimes you can go through enough things in your life that will make you walk away from God. It will make you walk away from family. It will make you walk away from your job. It will make you start speaking to your very own family, your own children. I'm telling you, a storm will do some things to you if you allow it. That's why you got to be a survival in the storm. Not just a regular survival, but a spiritual survival. Now I'm trying to help somebody today. You got to become a spiritual survival. And you say, what's a spiritual survival, Pastor? Someone who possesses the inner strength and faith to endure and overcome life's most strangest challenges in a storm. A spiritual survivor is someone who's able to continue to function in any situation. One who continues to exist in spite of it all. They strive in spite of the adversity that they're going through. Despite the loss, no matter what, they keep faith in God so they can outthink the situation. One who's willing to do whatever it takes to pass the situation. Can I tell you, the things I've been going through, dealing with this eye, dealing with my lung, if it wasn't for me having spiritual survival set mindset, I wouldn't be preaching today. I wouldn't be going to work. You got to push past the situation. You got to outthink the situation. A spiritual survival. You got to keep going in spite of the situation. I'm telling somebody. See, when you're in a storm, it's critical that you transform your mind, your attitude, your character to line up with God's purpose. I'm trying to tell you, see, you got to be like this transformer. You got to be like a transformer when you're going through. See, it just looks like a transformer, but when you get in a situation, you got to transform your mind. You got to start changing the way you think. You can't think the same way anymore. You got to think a whole nother way. You can't think like you used to think. You can't do the things you used to do. You got to transform your mind. Oh, my God. Ooh, Jesus. Sometimes you got to transform. I mean, you got to start connecting the dots. You got to worry about who you connect to. I'm telling somebody, the people you connect to is very important to your survival. So you got to change. If you weren't praying, well, you better start praying. I'm telling you, you got to change everything. Everything about your appearance, the way you act, the way you move, the way you talk, everything needs to change. They say everything got to change. Remember something? Everything got to change. Everything got to change. Everything got to change. I mean, everything. When I say everything, I'm talking about everything. Not just some things, but everything got to change. Everything got to change. Everything got to change. And see, what we want to do, we want to remain the same. We stay the same way when we need to be changing. Oh, my God. And sometimes we can get frustrated. You ever got frustrated when you're going through something? Kind of like I am right now. I'm frustrated because it ain't doing like I want it to do. And sometimes that's what happens in life. Things get all out of hand and just don't act like it's supposed to act. And you sitting there and you working with this and you working with that. And it seems like everything's going wrong. Ooh, Jesus. It's a little hard with this one eye. But it's okay, though. It's okay, though. See, because you can't give up. You can't just stop because things don't go the way you want it. You in a storm. It don't supposed to go the way you want it. It's supposed to be difficult. You in a storm. You got to remember that you are in a storm. Oh, yeah, I'm going to work with it. And I'm going to get it, too. Believe me. I'm going to get this thing because I'm coming out my storm. I don't know about y'all, but I'm coming out my storm. I'm going to see again. I'm going to breathe again. I'm going to do everything I used to do because this storm ain't not into death. And like they say, every storm ran out of water. So I'm going to get through this storm. I'm telling you. See, sometimes you got to change your whole perspective, your whole mindset. Everything got to change. Everything got to change. And then when everything change, everything, when I say everything got to change. And then you got to renew your mind. You got to put on your game face. You got to put on your game face. You got to be ready to go to battle. You can't worry about what it looks like. You got to adapt to it. See, you got to put on your game face. So I'm trying to tell you, you got to renew your mind. Learn how to draw strength from your faith and become a better version than you are. See, let me tell you about my uncle. See, my uncle, little brother, he used to tell us all the time, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. He said, I have jumped out of planes in the Army over and over. You could put me anywhere on earth, and I'll survive. I'll come out on top because I will do what it takes to survive. And then my Aunt Emma used to say the same thing. She said, I'm a survivor. And I was looking at her situation. I was looking at her because she couldn't hardly walk. She laid in the bed more than she sat up. And she's telling me she can survive. And I'm looking at her condition. But I didn't know she was a transformer in front of me. She said that. She said, all you got to do is give me a pot and some fire and something on my head, and I can survive anywhere. Because I'll do whatever, and I'll do whatever, and eat whatever I need to eat to survive. You got to be a survivor. I'm telling you, you got to be a survivor. And I remember my dad, his last years on earth here, walking around with 200 size of softball, bigger than softball, walking every day, coming to church every Sunday. A survivor, a transformer right before our eyes. See, some of us would stay in the bed. Some of us wouldn't have got up. But he kept coming. You got to be a survivor. I'm trying to tell you, you got to survive. You got to change the way you think. You got, man, oh my God. I'm trying to help somebody today. I'm trying to tell you. That's why God look on the inside. Because there is something that's in you that only he can see. God knew that Paul was going to be all right. He knew that Paul had him on the inside. And Paul trusted the Lord. Church, I'm telling you, as long as you have faith to believe, you will keep on no matter how bad it looks. You got to keep your faith. Look at somebody and ask them, where's your faith? They ain't paying no attention because they going through the storm. They let the storm in them. Look at somebody and ask them, where's your faith? See, everybody ain't going to say it because they let the storm over. See, that's why you want to come out, but you won't say what God asked you to say. You're just looking crazy. And say, this year ain't worried about your faith. The Bible says don't be afraid of your faces. So you can look at it if you want to. If you ain't got to say it, stay in your storm then. You don't want to get out your storm. You don't want to come out. You want to sit there. Why you come to church if you're going to sit there and don't participate? Why you come to church if you ain't going to say what God asked you to say? Why you come to church for? This ain't no social visit. Somebody needs some help and you showing up ain't doing nothing. You causing them problems. Ooh, Jesus. So you have no other choice when you're in a storm but to trust that God will bring you through. You got to put all your hope in God. You got to build your hope in Jesus and nothing else. See, my hope is in Jesus and nothing else. Nothing less than blood of Christ. My hope can't be built on my money. Your hope can't be built on your pastor. Your hope can't be built on your wife, your children, your job, your mom, your dad. Nothing but the name of Jesus. When you start putting hope in people, they'll let you down. They'll tell you they're going to come pick you up and don't show up. Talking about something came up. And most times they don't call you and let you know something came up. You just sitting there waiting on them. You trying to call them, they ain't answering. They looking at that phone. And they ain't going to ignore it because they know you ignore it. They know it didn't ring long enough. They let it keep going to voicemail. And most of us say, the person you call do not have a voicemail set up yet. You ever heard that? I'm trying to Okay. Y'all have the same people I have talking. I'm telling you. And that's what Paul was standing on. So the Bible says in 21, after a long absence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them. Sometime in the midst of your storm, you got to get along and have a little talk with Jesus. Sometime in your storm, in order for you to transform, you got to have a little talk with Jesus. In order for you, okay. Let me move on. I'm here to tell somebody it's good to have someone close to Jesus around. Some people don't know how much it means to have the righteous with them in the storm. So I'm telling you, some people don't understand. To have somebody that can get a prayer through. Some people understand the only reason your job is still a job because you got some righteous folks out there. Some people don't understand why you can go to the store and you leave the store and, oh my God. Let me tell you, stores be getting shut up. I remember it was in Incredible Peace. I had just now started walking, and I had asked my doctor the day before. I said, what happens if I got to run? He said, well, I guess you won't be running. And I laughed it off right. The very next day, we go down to Memphis, and I got to try to run. Shooting in Incredible Peace. I'm trying to carry Dax because Dax in the crowd. You got like 3,000 or 4,000 people in there. They all running towards him. I'm looking. I'm trying to get through the people's. They're trampling. So I get him up, and we trying to go. And so I said, I'm going to try to go out the front. So I go to the bathroom, and when I come out, I had him like this on this side. I come out. The guy stopped right here. Said, oh, I got shot. I did like this. I looked at him. I said, I can't help you now. I did a 360 on him, spin around, kept going. He looking at me like I'm going to help him. I can't hardly walk. And when I turned that corner, I'm on Channel 5, going around that corner with Dax in my arm. I'm telling you, you don't know what it's like to have somebody that can get a prayer through in your corner, in your ride, in your car, in your house when trouble hits. I remember my daughter and Jada, they are all in the closet with my wife and all of them. And Jada and I say, they're in the closet. And they say, we know what to do. We need to, we learned this in church. We got to pray. I'm telling you, you don't know what it means to have praying folks with you on your job, in your house, in these schools. It's important, y'all. It's important. You don't know what it's like to have praying people in the church. Everybody in church can't get no prayer through. I hate to tell y'all right now. See, y'all don't believe that, do you? See, you don't know, people don't hear real talk, do they? Okay. Let me move on. Because y'all looking at me like I'm talking Greek or something. I thought I was speaking English. I know my English, my words ain't pronounced all right, but I know you understand something I'm saying. If they say something, shoot. Paul told them to be of good cheer. See, when you walk with the Lord, you can when you walk with the Lord, you can say things like, count it all joy when you fall in dire temptation. See, when you walk with the Lord, you can say things like, reaping endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. See, when you walk with God, you can say those type of things. That's why Paul was able to stand in front of them and say, be of good cheer. No matter what it looked like, because they started wishing. How many know wishing don't help? Wishing don't work. See, he was able to say, be in good cheer. Then he told them why. He said, because the angel of the Lord, whom I am and who I serve, said, ain't nobody going to be lost that's with me. Somebody going to understand that. This is why we must live right, because we never know when we might be the difference maker riding in a car with somebody, on a plane with somebody, in a store with somebody, in certain places with somebody. See, that's why you got to live right, because you never know when you got to be the difference maker. I can't depend on this person living right for my life. I need to live right for my own life. Okay. I'm trying. You may be the difference maker of the outcome. See, Paul was able to stand and say to the centurion and the soldier, except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved. The storm had gotten so bad that they started wishing. It's bad when you start wishing for daylight. You wishing for something to happen. I'm here today to tell somebody, stay in the ship. Look at somebody and tell them, stay in the ship. Look at somebody and tell them, stay in the ship. See, a lot of times we jump out the ship and become shipwrecked. See, jumping out of the ship is like letting go of God, like walking away from God. See, sometimes there's something that jumping off the ship will cause you to do. See, when you jump out the ship, you'll mess your marriage up. You'll find yourself getting a divorce because you done jumped out the ship. That means you done walked away from God. That means now you're doing what you want to do, talking like you want to talk, treating each other like you want to treat each other, saying what you want to say. Okay. See, jumping out of the ship. You'll find yourself out there when you're going through problems. You'll try to drink your problems away, smoke your problems away. You'll find yourself getting on drugs because you can't handle the situation here. You don't like how you feel. You don't like how the storm making you feel. You done jumped out the ship. Now you're a drug addict, an alcoholic. So when you jump out the ship, you mess around and quit your job because you just don't feel like going to work no more. I'm telling you, you have kids jumping out of the ship, quitting school. Don't even graduate from high school. Leaving the church because they don't like the decisions, the things they said. Okay. That's why we must stay in the ship and get rooted in the ship. Make your bed in the ship. Jesus made his bed in the ship, didn't he? Put a pillow and everything, just laid there. What we must do is learn how to stay in the ship. Because in the ship is where you get made. In the ship is where God takes you from one level to the next level. Stay in the ship. I know it may get difficult in the ship, but in the ship is where you must trust God beyond what you can see, beyond what you can feel. In the ship is where changes are made. Remember when I said in the ship, you might be the difference maker. You might be the difference maker. You might be the difference of the outcome because you're in the ship. See, I didn't read the last few verses, but let me tell you about the end of this thing. See, they wanted to jump off the ship, and Paul told them to stay in the ship, right? And so they cut the anchors, and they started going, and all of a sudden they ran up on this creek, and the ship started falling apart, right? And if you read verse 42, the soldiers and the counselor told it's supposed to kill everybody on the ship because they don't want no prisoners to get away. They're supposed to kill everybody on the ship. You see what I'm saying? They're supposed to kill everybody on the ship. But if you go to verse 43, listen what verse 43 says. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that they which could swim could take themselves first into the sea and get to land. Verse 44 says, and the rest, some on board, some on broken pieces of the ship. And it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land. See, it wasn't for Paul. See, they said, we got to save Paul. And because he didn't want to kill Paul, because Paul was a prisoner. So you just cannot kill one prisoner. Either you're going to kill them all or save them all. And they say, because not willing to kill Paul, everybody was saved. Sometimes you got to be the difference maker. Sometimes you got to be the difference maker. Are you living good enough to be a difference maker? Is it come to everybody dying, and are you living righteous enough to keep everybody alive? Look at your household. Are you living righteous enough that the storm passes over? I remember in the Bible that God said he's going to destroy the whole earth. But he found favor with Noah, right? And everybody in his household. See, Noah lived good enough that the storm passed over. His household, the only household lived out of every single person in the world. We talking about trillions of people living, billions of people living, thousands on hundreds of thousands of people living. Everybody died, but his household, not his family, his household, the people that was in his house, not the people, not his family next door, not his cousin them down the street, but just the ones in his house. I ask again, as a storm come, Are you righteous enough? I remember I was living on Christian Street over there behind Dodgers. And that tornado came. And Swanee was my son. He was about 8, 9 years old. And he's like, tornado coming, tornado coming. I said, I already prayed. Let's go and get in your bed. He said, we ain't going to go over there to the folks next door and get in their storm shelter. I said, I ain't worried about that. We're going to pray. And I said, we prayed, we went to bed. And we heard, ooh, and then it went away. And so we didn't think nothing of it. Get up the next day, we looked outside, couldn't see nothing. But from here to that door, everything was about gone. It stopped from here to the door from our house and went straight up. Can you? I'm telling you. Sometimes you got to be the difference maker. You got to be I don't care what you do, stay in the ship. Even if you got to hold on to broken pieces of the ship. In the midst of your storm, stay in the ship. Amen.